Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 11 of African Do Podcast, where we tell stories of Africans doing great entrepreneurial things. And today, we're very privileged to have a good friend, an old friend, Miss Renee Ngamau, as our guest. And she runs a business which we'll learn more about, but she's also had a very interesting life and career. And we'll get straight into it. Renee, welcome to the African Do Podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. So I think let's get straight into it. I was reading up on you, and we've been friends for a while, but when you know people socially, sometimes you don't get to know them professionally. Yeah. So it was interesting to read your LinkedIn profile and to read up on CheckUps Medical and what you guys are doing, the interesting work you're doing there. But let's go back. You're a lawyer.
Way back.
Way back. You're a lawyer by training. Yeah.
I am.
And but you have not had. You did start out in the law.
Yes.
But you have not had a typical lawyer's career.
No.
You've kind of moved. You've done journalism, you have done radio, you've dabbled in, I think you were in financial services for a bit, and you've done in-house counsel for. So let's start there. Not at the very beginning, but maybe what made you study the law, and then how did you transition, and what triggered you at the various points you were triggered to move into the various things that you've done in your career.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So obviously, Leonard, when you say, we've known each other for a while, what you actually mean is we are childhood friends.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And you're right. When one knows one from childhood, sometimes we don't look at that professional aspect. But what led me to become a lawyer was really because I grew up in a single mother household, as you know.
Yes.
My father died when I was 3 years old. In fact, I hadn't quite made my third birthday.
Okay.
My mother chose not to remarry. And in that epoch, everything that could go wrong went wrong, because the concept of an unmarried young woman with children was not acceptable in society. Yeah. And so we grew up with me watching her very, very keenly, getting stripped off of all of the wealth that she and my father had put together very, very quickly. By the time the body was hitting the ground, she already had a demand note for everything, including my baby brother's crib at the time.
Wow.
And the land was taken away. We were cut off from my father's family, which is not untypical of that time, and even of now, of women's experiences when their husbands die.
Yes.
And I watched her through the years have an experience of what I felt was a discrimination by virtue of her being a woman and refusing to be under the wing of another man, very strong, independent woman, because that's all she could be.
Yes.
And I wanted to be a lawyer because I wanted to help my mom. I wanted to go fight for her land and for her right to be single.
Yes.
And then after having studied the law, very quickly the allure of corporate law pulled me. And I started off actually in oil and gas.
Yes.
So I worked for an oil company here in Kenya that's French-based.
Yes.
And then moved from there and went to do corporate law and practice corporate law in one of the top 5 corporate law firms in the world.
Yes.
In London.
Okay.
And I say this not just to impress you, but to impress upon you that you can start anywhere.
And end up anywhere.
End anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I did that for quite some time, grew up the corporate ladder and all the rest of it. But what was really lingering for me at the back of my mind was always that thought of what happens to those who are less privileged, who cannot speak like I do and don't have the kind of education and exposure that I have. What happens to people like my mom?
Yes.
And so my kind of dabbling was always in human rights, in rights of those who are vulnerable. And when I moved back to Kenya, I met with, in fact, during COVID, so I'm fast forwarding this conversation quite a bit. I met up with a lady who was supporting formerly imprisoned women, Teresa Njoroge.
Yes.
And she ran an organization called Clean Start.
Okay.
And I was helping women at the time to start and grow their own businesses during the COVID period.
Yes.
Because a lot were getting laid off or their salaries were being reduced to where they could not survive with what they had.
Okay.
Still along this theme of helping my mother. You can see how this is like a running theme for me.
Yeah.
And she said to me, how come you don't help women like me? And I was like, who are women like you? And she told me the story of what it's like to be imprisoned.
Okay.
And I'm a lawyer.
Yes.
And I had never heard about this.
Okay.
I even remember doing my fourth term because I did my undergraduate here in Kenya.
Yes.
And we went and did fourth term in which is you get attached to a local court, a magistrate's court.
Yes.
And I was attached to Kibra, which is a huge slum in the outskirts of Nairobi. And we'd see these people be brought on Monday with drunk and disorderly, selling without a license, selling outside the designated zone, loitering with intent to commit prostitution.
Yeah.
And you'd kind of have them in this batch. And all of them, their names would be read out and they'd say, present, present, present. And then they've been asked, how are you pleading? And someone has clearly told them to plead guilty. So they say, nimekubali, I have agreed.
Yes.
And you could tell that they didn't really know what they were agreeing to.
The understanding wasn't there.
It wasn't, but someone told them to just agree. And then they would be given a fine of 1,000 or 1 month imprisonment next.
Okay.
And that was the end of my interaction. And she was taking me through what happened.
So what did you discover?
And this is what I discovered.
Yeah.
That when you confiscate tomatoes worth 300 shillings or sweets worth 100 shillings from a woman who is hawking them outside the designated area, and to be inside the designated area costs 100 shillings in the license alone.
Yeah.
And then you fine her 1,000 shillings or 1 month imprisonment.
Yeah.
You are punishing her for being poor.
Okay.
Not for a crime.
Okay.
Because if she had 1,000 shillings, she would have been inside the designated zone and she would not be selling sweets. She would be selling something higher value.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. The landlords would send agents to the courts, and they still do. The minute that woman is fined and she does not take the option of the fine and therefore goes in, they padlock her house. They remove all of her things and padlock the house. The things are sold. If she has any children who are over 4, the children immediately become street children. So if you check, you'll find that on Saturday mornings, you'll have an influx of street children on certain streets. That's because Friday night was Kamata Friday, which is the roundup.
Wow.
Now, the children under 4 go in prison with their mother. So they instantaneously become imprisoned for a crime that was not theirs.
Their mother's crime.
But if you can call
systemic,
it crime.
if you can call it that,
But there's no financial allocation in the national budget for those children. That means that for that month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever her period is, they will be malnourished. They will not have blankets. They are likely to develop upper respiratory diseases. For the children who are over 4 years of age, social services before COVID would take them in, but our social services in Kenya is stretched beyond compare.
Yeah.
If she does not have a family that will take those children in, they immediately go on the street. Now, here's the bit that will really disgust you. It costs 100 shillings to go with a boy who is under the age of 10. And when I say go, I don't mean a walk. Girls over 10 go for 50 shillings a pop. A shot, as it's called. Do the math. And I don't mean just the numbers.
And who's driving this?
When that woman comes out, she's traumatized. She has only the clothes on her back. And she now has children that have been sexualized, that have been violated in order for them to eat. I didn't believe this. So one of the ladies took me to one of those cinema places, you know, the Mabati places, the tin roof places where people go and watch football and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I was watching kids disappearing to the back with young men and then coming back, adjusting themselves, wiping their mouths, pulling up their clothes. With young men sorting their belts, zipping up, buttoning themselves. I was watching this happens in the same country you and I live in. Systemized.
Whoa.
And when she comes out, if she has nothing, this child will calculate and say, Mom, I can go make us money. Now we've raised a criminal. In fact, we've generated a next generation criminal because it will start there and it'll move to a gang. And because this child is so traumatized, they have no qualms about attacking you with a knife, running a gun, breaking into your school, your car, into your home. They have no intention of going to school. It costs too much and it doesn't make sense for them. And this came because she didn't have 1,000 shillings, the equivalent of $10 now of $8. It made no sense for me. So I started helping these women to start and grow their own businesses. And we'd have mixed classes. And by mixed, I mean formerly imprisoned and persons who had never experienced prison. Okay. And I'd say that you're not allowed to say anything. You're not allowed to tell your background. Everyone hit the road running, and there were 15 weeks. And what I noticed is that these women had a higher rate of growth because they knew the cost of failure.
Okay.
And they were building businesses in ways that were incomparable. Generally, it's not that everyone was building a business, but this particular group of women were moving and they were cooperating, and they just needed to understand, what do I need to do next? And there wasn't discomfort in getting to whatever the next is.
Yeah.
And so in supporting them, we started a program that was inside the prison, starting to help women to learn skills, including business skills, before they come out. Yeah. Because in that month or 3 months or whatever it is, we have a captive audience. And because it's such a short period of time, unlike men who usually go in for longer periods of time, for women, 76% of the women who go into prison today will go in for less than a year on petty, non-violent, poverty-related offenses.
Okay.
So they come out and they have the skills. We create a system where the skills that they have, plus the business knowledge that we give them, plus the environment that we put them in where we aggregate them, would get them to grow into business and then eventually branch out on their own. Now, we need to give them money so that they can at least find a place to go and stay. So we'd give them 15,000 shillings as a grant. You can go and stay. And we'd find these little rooms, 4,000 shillings, 5,000 shillings a month. 3 months. By that time, she'll start making her money if she follows our program.
So where's this business?
So the business
sets up because this whole problem started with a licensing issue.
So the businesses are businesses that we have curated within the organization, depending on where she is.
Yeah.
So for example, in Kajiado, they're doing honey. They are, so it's different places and different things.
Cooperative
It's based on a cooperative. So it's a number of women who have come together and we've designated them. So if you've been out for a period of time, you go into the business development, and the ones who have just come out go into manufacturing and production.
Okay.
Why? Because they still need to settle in. You've settled in a little bit more, you can go to the next level, and you're saving up money so that you can be able to buy enough stock, depending on what it is that you're doing, to become independent and yourself start hiring the women who are coming out on the pipeline.
Okay.
So we have it really well laid out.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Women go through three major challenges.
Okay.
Number one, I need a roof over my head and food on the table for me, my children, and the parent that I'm caring for.
Yes.
Usually an older mother.
Yes.
Number two, so that we can deal with the grant for the first 3 months. The business will pick up and she'll be able to feed, clothe, and house her children. I should have mentioned of this that 92% of the women in prison are single mothers without family support.
Okay.
Uneducated or undereducated, early pregnancy, many have undergone FGM, and they do not have family support.
Okay.
And so she is everything. When we say baba na mama, she is mother and father.
Yes.
So that's the first challenge, is roof over my head, food on the table. Number two challenge is educating my children.
Yes.
Particularly if she has a bright child who is called to a national school.
Yes.
Immediately, national schools want 40,000 shillings or thereabouts, which is about $350 now, of school fees right at the door in order for her to take up that opportunity. Again, we will come and harass Leonards and other people and go to church and mosques and things and say, we've got a bright child who requires an education, and people are willing to give for that. The third is healthcare.
Okay.
Now, if it's an accident or an incident, people will give money for a one-time event, like for surgery or for travel. If it's a chronic disease where every single month money is needed, then people get tired. You can't be on my budget. The challenge is this: hypertension, diabetes, arthritis, upper respiratory diseases, they will require every single month between 6,000 to 60,000 in medication and labs, depending on how far gone you are. And I'll tell you what brought me to this. One of the ladies who we work with, she's formerly in prison, doing really well. She had hired 4 other people. Her business was growing. She was not only present here, she was also exporting her wares. She was selling household goods, crockery, dishes, that kind of thing. Says to me, Renee, you'll have to come and visit me in prison. I say, what? She said, you have to come and visit me in prison because my mom's wound has not healed. So I say, dial back. Her mother has diabetes.
Okay.
Her mother's diabetes is far gone and she has had a wound on her leg.
Yes.
And diabetes, one of the things is that the wounds don't heal.
True.
So it's festered and she's got gangrene and they have to amputate the leg. And she says to me, she's going to need 70,000 shillings. She's going to withdraw immediately all the money from the business, which at the time was about 35,000 shillings. She's going to borrow another 35,000 shillings from a Shylock because she knows nobody's going to give her the money. She wants to raise about 100,000 shillings. She's going to ask everyone to contribute a little bit. And she knows she's not going to be able to pay it back. And she knows she's going to be charged with obtaining by false pretenses. And the penalty for obtaining by false pretenses is 3 years in prison.
Yeah.
But she's calculated it that if she can save her mom's leg and leave her mom with 30,000 shillings, she will do the time.
Whoa.
Her eldest was 10, 7, and 3.
So how did that story end?
I'll tell you how the story ended in a short while. But just let that sink for a minute, that there are people that is the cost.
Someone's making that call.
Someone's making that call and is going back to hell to save her mom and her kids. That call has to be made. And so I said, we've got to raise this money. So that's not going to be happening. Not to mention what happens to these 4 other women who now are suddenly unemployed and have been left without any money. So we start looking for fundraising, and this is how I know that people don't fundraise for chronic diseases, because we couldn't raise the money. In the end, we were going into pockets and things in order for her not to have to go down this route. And I began to ask myself, what happens to women like these? What happens to those? This is the one I know. How many others are there who didn't have access to me, or who didn't tell me, who I'm just wondering, why would you go back after all the work that we've done? And then I started now interviewing the other women and interviewing women in prison and finding out what were their healthcare needs. And Leonard, I think this entire period for me was just such a shock to understand that we live in completely parallel universes, in the same street, in the same houses, because these are domestic workers, they are factory workers, they are low-level employees, they are waiters, they are all making similar calls, even when it doesn't end in prison. If you can't find people who will fundraise for you, then the next step is a Shylock, so that you get the money very, very quickly. Then you'll figure it out.
You need to do, and you'll figure out with the Shylock.
And that means for those who have even a little bit of assets, you start selling the assets. So this cycle of poverty is being contributed to by healthcare. We are all one major disease away from poverty.
From disaster.
Everyone who's had cancer in their family knows how expensive it can be. And cancer can be diabetes, can be asthma, can be arthritis, whatever it is, at whatever income level.
But you've gone a bit, I dare say, you've gone down. You've really taken this granular.
I have.
Yeah, in the sense that it's a statement that is quite common in Kenyan terms. When you hear people say, we're all one major illness away from financial ruin.
Yes.
But this is, I think, a bit more, what you're telling us about is slightly heavier than that, because this is the vulnerable of the vulnerable. You know, it really is a systemic issue. So then you discover all this and you collect all this data and you have all this information. But before I even get there, when you were telling us the story of the startup capital of 15,000 and the ladies you give to give a better start, who's the we? Who's the funder?
So the funder is, through Clean Start, which is the organization that was started by formerly imprisoned women for formerly imprisoned women because they couldn't find help anywhere else.
Okay.
They had started to raise funds and to find funds that were willing, donors, charities, family foundations that were willing to support them.
Okay.
And so it's the money that they were receiving, rather than us just distributing it. We thought, how do we create a pipeline that enables us to regenerate?
So this was you working through a Clean
Start. Organization. Exactly.
Okay.
And so I started with just helping with the enterprise end of things.
Yeah.
And then now moving into, let's create a system that enables us to fundraise for ourselves. And then going into governance. So I'm, and all of this is volunteer work with.
Am I right in saying that this was not a planned journey?
This was not a planned journey.
It was kind of like you peel one layer of the onion and you find this under there, and then you come and peel the next. Would that be correct to say for you?
Not only correct. At every level, I was quite sure that as soon as I create this system it works,
I'm done.
I can step away.
My bit.
Yes, I have done my bit, sayonara, it was real.
Yeah.
And then I'd get to the next one. And I think what really called me, Leonard, is the fact that, but for the grace of God, there go I. But for the grace of God. Had I had a different education, had I been born on a different side of the tracks, that would be me. That would be your mom, your sister. We haven't even started talking about what happens to men when they have to make this choice, because there are men who do.
Yes.
And that if you consider that over 80% of our population is making less than $5 a day, this is the story of 80%, and I'm being generous here, of our population.
Yeah.
How is this okay?
Wow. Okay. So let me bring us back now.
So let me tell you how the story ends.
Let's come to how the story ends, because you have now got me racing in a different direction to where I thought we were going. But go ahead. Yeah.
So I meet up with Dr. Mokalantam.
Yes.
He is already running CheckUps Medical, and they are doing COVID testing. Remember that this is during the COVID period.
Yes.
They're doing COVID testing. So whenever you need, they're coming home and taking samples, and they can go and do the testing. And they are sending the reports, and you can get your certificate and fly. And I'm doing quite a bit of travel during 2020, 2021. So we're interacting a lot with them. And I keep thinking to myself, you've got all of this equipment. How do I get healthcare for this woman? How does this need meet this supply? And so we are kind of having the conversation.
Just to clarify, CheckUps Medical
existed before I showed up.
Before you showed up.
Yes, and it existed as a clinic.
And you're using them to get your tests done, your COVID tests. Every time you travel, you need a valid test, and that's what you're using them for.
And that's what I'm using them for. Is that how you meet them? And that is how, in fact, how I even find out about the test, the business, is a mutual friend who says, stop lining up at wherever I used to line up and get this done at home.
Okay,
Here's the person.
They'll come to you.
They will come to you. In fact, let me introduce you.
Okay, perfect.
And so this is completely coincidental. Coincident. God's way of creating what he wants, making what he wants to happen.
Yes.
So I have this idea of how now COVID is coming to an end.
Yeah.
I have this idea of how actually these women can be able to access labs. My biggest thing was just labs, because I didn't know about all the rest of it. If they can access lab tests cheaper, then we actually have a better diagnosis. We can find out earlier. We can help people earlier, et cetera, et cetera. I've got my women in mind.
Yeah.
Dr. Moka is running his business, doing what he is doing, and he is doing it very, very well indeed. And we have a series of conversations, at the end of which it becomes clear and apparent to both of us that if we are going to create the product that we now call CheckUps COVA, I need to be willing to stop doing what I was doing.
And come and do this.
And so 2023 comes round. I make the leap. I make the investment. I step in. And we now start working as co-founders on CheckUps COVA. Why? Because I need a solution to this is too big a problem
to solve
ignore.
what you've seen. Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I want to take you back to the story of my young lady because I don't want to leave you hanging.
Yes.
Her mom didn't have her leg amputated.
Okay.
We discovered that there's a product that comes out of Japan that is about a half an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch thick, that you can put around a festering wound, a surgical wound, a burn, even 3rd-degree burns, and it helps generate stem cells, increase blood flow, regenerate flesh, and heal the wound. I'd have never discovered that had I not said yes to, we need to get this resolved. I am foolish enough and maybe proud, I don't know whether it's pride or just sheer dog, just stubborn.
Greed, yeah.
I'm stubborn enough to think I'm going to solve this problem. So now we find this product. And for people with diabetic wounds, post-surgical wounds, wounds that won't heal, for people with 3rd-degree burns, you know, the gas explosion horrors.
Yes.
You wrap them in this, and there's a protocol around it.
What is it? Is it a sheet?
It's a sheet. It's literally a sheet that's that thick, but it's got quite a lot of nanotechnology in it.
Okay.
And you wrap it in it, which means that they can be treated from home.
Okay.
Which reduces the hospital bills. Remember, my thing is all about how do we make this affordable?
And who do you find this out from? This product?
We're
it
literally. It
doesn't seem like a mainstream product.
No, it's not. Yeah. But we are scouring the world.
Okay.
We find places where they sell cancer medication at fair prices. So medication for rare diseases at fair prices so that people who can't afford the commercial price can access the medication.
Yeah.
And so we're now trying to find how do we bring in chemotherapy for those who need it so that people aren't dying because they don't have money. So we're finding out, you know how when you go looking for something, it comes looking for you?
Yes.
So what we are looking for is looking for us. I think sometimes what we must do in life is create intent and then hold on to it like a 4-year-old.
Okay.
You know how like 4-year-olds jump or 3-year-olds, they jump off the table knowing you will catch them. The how, the when, the where you are, this is not the point.
True.
They've got their Superman cape on. They are leaping. Jump, Your job is to figure all of this out. Yeah. I think there's a value in being permanently like a 4-year-old, and I suspect there's some part of my brain that is.
Okay.
And now we have the beginnings of a product, CheckUps COVA.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who had worked behind the scenes looking for some version of this, but it finally clicked.
So tell us now, what is CheckUps COVA? So
to tell you that, I've got to tell you this story.
Okay.
So we start off with, remember I was about how do we get doctor's services, the whole gambit of services
into
for the
that
ladies. Space.
Yeah.
At the price that they can afford.
Yes.
So you ask, what price can you afford? Well, they can contribute 100, 200, 500 shillings daily. They can be able to commit to that. So I say, okay, with 100 shillings daily, what can we do? Can we get them to commit to 100 for 100? 100 shillings for 100 days. Do the math. In 100 days, in 3.5 months, they will have paid up 10,000 shillings. It's 10,000 shillings. Okay. What can we do with 10,000 shillings that takes care of them and their loved ones? Notice I didn't say their families, their loved ones, which means we have to take care of the mother with the festering leg and the babies. So we close the loop on what already existed at CheckUps Medical, which is that we had doctors, lab facilities, very, very high throughput lab facilities, diagnostics, so x-rays, etc., and medication delivery. So I say, if we closed this, we can actually predict the price here.
Because you have all the infrastructure.
Because we have the entire infrastructure, the entire services, and the talent.
Yeah.
If we can we offer it to these women at a lower cost because we don't have to make profit at every single point.
Yeah.
We want to make an overall profit.
You can think about it from a lump sum perspective.
There you go.
Yeah.
So if we do, we can bring down the cost to between 45 to 25% of what is being charged externally.
Just repeat that. What's the percentage you said? 45?
45 to 25%
of what is charged in the market.
What is charged in the market. In other words, if you go to our website today, www.checkupsmed.com, we promise you that if you pick 3 out of our 5 products, we will 4x your healthcare benefits. So if you buy healthcare benefits for 1,000 shillings, you will get 4,000 shillings worth of healthcare benefits that we will distribute in doctor's consultation, labs, diagnostic, medication, specialist, nurse dispatch, lab dispatch and sample collection. And we will come to where you are. So you never have to travel to us. Why? Because if that woman has to leave her stall for a day, it didn't just cost her bus fare. It cost her that day's earnings.
Yes.
And if she has to come 2 or 3 times in a month, she will lose that spot and move back to the places that are less favorable in the market because someone else will take that spot.
Yes.
And her healthcare is dependent on her earning, and her earning is dependent on her healthcare.
Yeah.
And if we make her come to a clinic, she has to pay for the costs of infrastructure. She has to pay for the receptionist and the rent and the utilities and all the rest of it. So now we dispatch nurses. So we do that for a year. And we're doing it in Ghana.
You're dispatching the nurses how?
They have an app. So we are very AI and tech enabled.
Okay.
Very, very AI and tech enabled.
Okay.
And so we've got a proprietary app. And we've worked around it so that we can also, now we're solving many problems. Women and how we think. Everyone has to be included in this story. I read somewhere, 22,000 nurses without jobs in Kenya. I'm like, I beg.
Really?
I'm weak. I see the riots and the demonstrations by doctors who are not being deployed or who are being underpaid or who are serving as medical interns. You remember that shenanigan?
Yeah.
And I'm like, in this country,
with all this chaos that I'm seeing. So
now, the next expansion level, how do we incorporate all of these people who are clearly underemployed or unemployed so that they can serve all of these women? I'm still thinking about women who are in the markets and in other places without this team of professionals having to move to Nairobi and without me having to house them because that's going to cost me a lot of money. And so we create an app. Think of us as an Uber for nurses.
How does the app work?
So the doctor, when you make a teleconsultation, the doctor will instruct the nurse or the lab on what the nurse or the lab tech are the eyes and ears of the doctor.
Okay.
So they will be dispatched with information on what they need to do in terms of observation, sample collection. And here's the thing. Here's something else that I must tell you. If you think about whenever you've gone to see the doctor, right? Have you ever told the doctor where you live?
No.
Have you ever told the doctor where your window faces, for example? Or has that ever come up?
No.
Okay. Consider this. A person who keeps coming in and bringing their baby for having respiratory diseases. Okay. Unless someone goes to that home and notices that the window to the bedroom where the baby sleeps in the housing there where they live opens to the window of the kitchen of the flat next door where they cook with gas or they cook with a jiko, and that there's very little in this wind corridor.
So the smoke is gone.
The smoke is going here. No wonder this baby always has a respiratory disease. But when the person comes to the doctor, will that question ever be asked or even explored? It will not come up. You just have a sickly child. But when you go to the home, this includes the observations that you can make on a patient.
So the doctor now, I'm trying to get to the nuts of the process. The lady or the woman in the marketplace, maybe she's feeling unwell. So she calls. What does she do? She calls.
Yeah. She speaks directly to a doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor takes down basics, decides. It's a doctor who decides whether a nurse dispatch or what is needed as the next steps. Okay. They will then instruct the nurse through an app The nurse then goes, complete with instruction, to where the woman in the market is.
Yes.
She has what we call a clinic in a bag. It is basically everything that you have in a physical clinic that can do everything from if she found a crisis, any kind of crisis, diabetes, hypertension, cardiac crisis, she can be able to address it on the ground. Okay.
With this bag.
With this bag.
Yeah.
So it's very, very heavily equipped.
Yeah.
She is very, very heavily trained.
Yes.
Usually a she. We do have some male nurses, but I'm going to say she because usually it is a she. And so she will arrive on the ground and she will do whatever the instructions are. The doctor is able to speak with the nurse and with the patient because the app is WhatsApp based.
Okay.
Because we don't want people carrying another app. Because when you download an app and you don't use it for about 3 weeks, what do you do?
It either goes dormant or
you eject it. You delete immediately.
Or space constraints. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and all of this, I'm giving you this for free, but I tell you it costs us because we did all of those mistakes.
Yes.
Until we arrived at, please do not add another app onto people's phones.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's WhatsApp based.
Yeah. Now, this information is being relayed real time to the doctor. Very AI enabled diagnosis, which enables the doctor to then say, check for this, check for that, check for the other. I'll give you a simple example.
Yep.
How many forms of diabetes do you know? It's not a trick question.
Oh, 2, type A and B, yeah.
Type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know that there is a third type of diabetes called MODY?
No.
Mature onset diabetes of the young.
Okay.
Which presents mainly with teenagers, but looks like it could be type 1 or type 2 diabetes, but it's not.
Okay.
It is a third type of diabetes. And it exists in our environment. Now, if typically, I'm quite sure there are even doctors who will say what now?
Yeah.
Typically, you would be diagnosed and then it would go into, you must have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. With AI enhancement and the right kind of questions, you can diagnose for this type of diabetes called MODY. The effect is for our teenagers and for our young persons that we are not treating them in a way that is not effective for the specific kind of diabetes that they have. But if you haven't been trained as an MD, as an MO, as a CO, as a clinical officer, for this type of diabetes, you revert to type 1 or type 2, which is not wrong. It's just the extent and the limit of what you know.
Yeah.
We're able to do that because of our tech enablement. So our doctors are doing much better diagnoses, even though they are GPs.
Okay.
So now you have a better diagnosis. We now have a better plan of action. And because we've had the general observation of the place, part of the prescription could very well be you need to move.
From here.
You need to shut that window. You need to put a humidifier in the room. Now we're getting a lot more practical and pragmatic because we want the end result to be your health. And in addition to that, we can now offer the pharmacy, the medication that you need. And remember, because you paid for something that we 4X'd, you're getting better value in your medication. And we will source for it.
So I want to close this loop. We have come. The lady is with the nurse practitioner at the market. She's seen the lady. She's made the diagnosis. Say maybe there are tests to be done. She's able to do them there, or what?
Or happens? She can bring them. She can bring them back.
She can bring the samples. She can take the samples.
She'll take the samples
and come back with them.
And she'll come back. Okay. And if she's outside of Nairobi, she can cold chain them back through logistics companies that we have agreements with.
That you have worked with. Okay. And so they come back to you. You run the tests. You establish what's wrong. Then she goes back, or what does she do?
Then she can go back, or she can make a call.
Okay.
Hi, Mama so-and-so.
Yes.
This is the doctor. These are your tests. First of all, the lady in the market will get her own test results.
Okay. She
will receive them by WhatsApp.
Okay.
And she will receive simultaneously a call from the doctor saying, this is what we have found. Do you see that number? This is what it means. This is the good news. This is the part that we need to take care of. This is the proposal for how we go about addressing the challenge that you have right now, health-wise. Yes.
And
this
then
is the medication.
The treatment regimen starts.
The supplements, what you should stop eating and start eating, what you should do. Should you make some movements? Should you every single aspect of it. Are you in pain? For those who have arthritis or other chronic or acute pain, come into our facility and get MLS laser pain therapy so that we can get rid of the inflammation, so you can be able to have better range of movement, so you can be able to go back into the market and operate more freely. We are in the business of health. We're not in the business of sickness.
Wow. So this journey for you started 2023, right? When you now formally recognize that you have to come in and you now do this full time.
I now do this full time.
So we're 2025 February.
We're in 2025 February.
What numbers are we talking about?
So
where have we reached? What impact are you having? What does it look like now?
So the impact where we have reached right now. So in 2024, we did 56,000 families.
Wow.
We did not advertise. It was entirely
organic.
It was, I got your number from Mama.
So and so.
And it wasn't, they just weren't coming themselves. They were bringing their families.
Wow.
And so we've created these healthcare benefits that she was buying into. 100 days of 100 shillings. When you go around for the merry-go-round and the chama, you know how women are, they will take that money and a part of it will come towards paying their medical bills or buying into the healthcare benefits. And I haven't finished the loop for you yet. Because our healthcare benefits can be shared with whoever you want. Now, traditional insurance will say you can only share mother, father, and children, direct consanguinity. We don't care. We don't care how you're related or whether you're related or not. If you nominate that person, they can access and use your healthcare benefits.
Do you limit the nomination numbers?
No, we don't limit the nomination numbers. And you will see your utilization report. So keep topping up. Incidentally, we don't even limit, we don't even say that you have to pay a certain amount before you can access service.
Yes.
Pay and start accessing immediately because people pay for healthcare when they need it. We don't have a saving culture because we don't have the money to save at that level. Yes. Whatever we say about it, that is a different cookie.
My 1 shilling is 4.
You know your 1 shilling is 4.
Yeah.
And so whether it is your parents, aunties and uncles, relatives, factory workers, employees, children of the house help.
And what does that look like on the app? So do I have to how do I bring them on?
You will key in whoever it is that you want.
I say, I'm me the payer of the premium. I'm the one who determines I'm paying for this service and these are my people.
And and you can even say, I'm limiting them to use this so that one person does not deplete. Or you can say, it's a free for all. When it depletes, let me know. I will add more money. And what if it goes over 1 year? We don't care. Your healthcare benefits do not expire.
If you've paid, you're in.
You're in and you just draw down and draw down and draw down. And what else do? We do a wellness check when you come in, 33 critical points so that you know exactly your state of health. Why? Because it enables you to budget and understand what will my healthcare needs look like at the door, as opposed to waiting until you're in pain and discomfort and then you're rushing to the doctor, sometimes when it is a bit late and a lot more expensive.
So what are you? You're not an insurance company.
No, we're not.
Se. You're not you're like a hybrid of an insurance company with medical facilities that's rolled into one. Is that a fair assessment?
So that is the beginning of a fair assessment.
Yes.
And then now let me tell you about the survey that we did.
Okay.
Because this is a weird and wonderful world.
Yeah.
So then we noticed that the women were coming and they were accessing all of our services. They were bringing their children, their parents, workers that they had hired in their small kibanda. The ones who are helping to cook the chapati and to take out the trash. And they were bringing them and their children. And then they'd get to a point where they'd use the pharmacy benefits. And then they'd say, give me a day or two. When they'd get the prescription, they said, give me a day or two, let me get some money, and then I come. And we're like, okay, that's interesting that now we're delaying care because maybe this was a chronic, they have a chronic disease and they've run out of the medication benefits. So now they're having to go and look for money somewhere else and then come and pay for the medication, which they're already getting at a huge discount.
Yeah.
And the answer was, sometimes I just don't have the cash right now. It's an affordable service. It works. I love it. But today,
I don't have the cash.
I don't have the cash. So we thought, okay, we need to plug this. So now we've added on something called medical credit. So instead of going to look for money under the bed with the relatives, with the Shylock, which is what we were seeing a lot of that, with apps that will charge you a lot of money, we will curate who you can borrow from, who is on our list, that ensures that you get the money at a fair commercial price. So that you get the money today and pay for it today and get your health care now instead of delaying it.
Who are these fair lenders?
There you go. I knew you were going to ask that question. I was reeling you in.
I went there. Who are these fair lenders? Yeah.
Well, start by thinking the difference between a Shylock and a bank.
Okay.
In interest
fair enough.
rate.
Yeah.
A Shylock is 120, 130%, and it's compound and it's increasing, and they will come and stand at the door of this woman and not allow her to leave the house. They will take the door down. They will take everything out of her house. We're back to my original situation.
Yes.
So if I can even get them to get to a bank, an MFI, or a SACCO, I have literally saved them.
Fair enough.
So let's start there. And which ones of them are they that get that there's an opportunity here? Now, here's what we didn't know. On the other side, for you and me, Leonard, who borrow large amounts of money.
Yes.
The bank will insist that we take life assurance.
Yes.
So that they get their money in the very unlikely event.
If I die.
There you go.
The guy gets his color. Yeah.
Yes. He's not playing. Death will not do us part like that. Okay.
Yes.
However, we were then reading surveys that were saying that early default or restructuring of loan repayments with MFIs and banks is usually because the main borrower or someone who is very close to the borrower has a disease, and the borrower comes back and says, or has fallen sick, and the borrower comes back and says, I need to use the money I would have paid you to pay for a medical bill. Can we restructure my loan? I skip this month. We start again from next month. In other words, there's a risk inherent in that primary borrower.
Okay.
And they hadn't addressed this risk. Here we have a product.
The lender hadn't addressed that risk.
The lender has not addressed the risk.
Okay.
Here we are, little us, CheckUps Medical, with CheckUps COVA, which is a product that can be embedded in the loan that de-risks default at this level. De-risks it not just for the borrower, but those who are closest to the borrower who would derail the bank's repayments.
Even the borrower with good intent.
A borrower with good intent.
He'll be derailed by factors beyond his control.
Of course.
Yes.
So now the banks and MFIs are saying, hang on, just thank you for the story you've just told us. We have another problem over here.
Yes.
Can you fix this? And we're saying, okay, let's see how our product can fix this. And this, I think, is the power of entrepreneurship that is homegrown.
Yes, local context. My buzzword.
Thank you.
I love it.
It's vital.
Yeah. Yes.
And an agility that we have because we can read the textbook till we're black and blue in the face. Qua ground.
Yes.
That's where it really matters.
Yes.
And we're saying, of course, our product can de-risk your circumstance. How do we co-create this? And then the banks say to us, and I'll bet you have this as well, do you ever get those little texts from your bank that says, you are pre-approved to borrow up to...
Yeah. You're good, Mike. Come and get more cash.
Come and get more cash.
Yes.
Have you gone for the more cash?
No. I avoid them like the plague.
And the reason you avoid them is because?
Yes, first, at the time, maybe I don't need it. Or I feel this is just another...
They're just selling me.
They just want to shika me, man.
They're just trying me.
They want to
take
more
this
color from me. Yeah.
Get thee behind me.
Yeah.
Have you been ill during any period of time when you've received that text?
No.
Just think from the first time you received them, because they started this about a year ago, right?
Okay.
To date. Is there any point at which you've been ill?
You've gone to a hospital.
You've gone to a hospital, even with an acute condition. You have a headache, a cold, a bad flu, etc. But you never thought, I'm quite sure for you, you were able to afford it.
Yes.
But for those they never thought, why don't I tap into this facility for exit and deal with my medical problem? Because this I can pay back. It's not going to cost me as much as going retail.
Yes.
Even going retail, because how much will you pay on medical when you go for a consultation? Ballpark, give me a number.
1,000, 1,500.
1,500. Yeah. How much will you pay for the most basic test? Let's say a malaria test.
Yeah, I would say another 1,000.
Another 1,000. Yeah. Medication?
Yeah, depending. Now you get the malaria, maybe 2,000-3,000.
2,000-3,000.
Yeah.
So you've paid 4,000, 5,000 for a singular visit.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So if we take 4,000, and I say to you,
I just need to find 1,000.
You can, instead of paying 4,000 retail or 5,000 retail, you can buy healthcare benefits, and I will give you 20,000 shillings worth of care, which turns your one visit
into 5 or 4.
4 visits.
Yeah.
And what you will do if you don't have the 5,000 shillings is that you will pay back the bank 5,000 shillings at 18% interest. But you have your medication today, not just for today, for this particular, whatever the ailment is, malaria, let's say, but for you, your wife, your children, your parents, your house help, her children, whoever else that you need, for as long as you have not completed or depleted the utilization of these healthcare benefits. So, would it be a deal or not?
Great deal. So 56,000 families in year 1 of operations, right? And year 1 was when?
Year 1 of this particular product was 2024.
Okay, so you've just finished year 1.
So you're
entering into year 2.
Complete proof of concept.
Yes.
And not only do we have the proof of concept, the rate at which the services are being demanded right now is overwhelming us.
Really?
It's overwhelming us.
Okay.
Leonard. And I thank God for this. So
that's a good problem to have.
This is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Because people are buying for their parents up country. Employers are buying for their employees. Banks, insurance companies, banks and MFIs are saying, listen, for all of our banked uninsured, why don't we get them a product? We've never been in the medical credit space. Can you guys figure this out for us and give our clients up to 4x worth of value?
You know, I was looking at your website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to be honest, I must confess that sitting with you now and looking at your website, I actually thought you're older as a business or as a healthcare service provider than you actually are, because you're talking about 1 year.
So remember that CheckUps existed.
That's fine. Yeah, that I can see.
This particular product and this particular innovation is 2 years old. And I'll tell you why 2.
Yeah.
2023, COVA still existed in 2023.
Okay.
COVA in 2023 was the year of tears. You're an entrepreneur. You know this. There's 1 year where you will make all the mistakes that you can make. You will make some which you even think,
yeah. What was I doing there? Why do I find myself in that situation? Yeah.
So the part that I'm not telling you about is that 2023 school fees.
Where you paid. You have to pay. You have to pay school fees. Yeah.
So this product as it now is the result of 2023 school fees.
But Renee, you've also got some, I dare say, solid names backing CheckUps Medical.
Yes.
And funding is always top of mind for most entrepreneurs. So how did you crack that one?
You know, I am open. Like, how much wine does this place serve wine?
No. They don't even allow drinks here. I've tried to convince them, but they don't. Yeah?
We're writing a petition. So I can tell you the cute story, but I prefer not to, because founders, we know this.
Yes.
It is of tears.
Of course.
Of like, just please. Don't just come with the, in fact, just give us hankies.
Yes.
Give a bed sheet and we will cut it into pieces ourselves. Now, the good thing is that we have had funders who have seen what is possible.
Yeah.
I can tell you for free and for nothing, for every funder that we've had, literally, I think we have sent, here's a story. There's a time in 3 months, we decided we were going to target 100 funds.
Yes.
Then we started. And that work has to be done at midnight because during the day you have to run the business. And we would be sending out emails, trying to connect, doing family trees. Who knows who can connect us with whom? Pitching. We did air miles and whatever accommodation one could afford in whatever places. We've accelerated. You know how you go for like 1 million accelerate? We have accelerated ourselves, I think, to the end of the speedometer. And while we do have some really incredible backers, I can tell you that it's not easy. And this is not something that I would recommend a singular founder to do. There is a myth about being a founder. You yourself, it's alone, you against the world.
Yes.
That
the emotional
nonsense.
toll is heavy. It's heavy. It's heavy. Yeah. That one you can preach about it. Yeah.
That is nonsense. Even when you're two,
we still feel it.
It's heavy lifting. And here's the other thing, as a co-founder, I can tell you, because short of you being in the same house together, okay, if what you are co-founders, you, even if you're in the same house together, I'm not sure how that would work, but what you need to have is grace. Because the level of stress will make you chew each other's heads out. And everyone needs to understand right now, in the moment that we're yelling, everyone is yelling at everyone else, that at some point everyone's going to need to calm down and do the work.
True.
And that this yelling is steam blowing off. I've seen co-founders that could not stand the sight of one another, businesses that broke up that were such brilliant ideas, because we're not taught the mechanisms of how to operate under the high level of stress that co-founders go through.
Agreed.
And nobody understands it because they see the shiny toys on the outside.
Agreed.
Look at Leonard and Blancos
cool
and
guy,
and here he is.
Arrived.
And yes. And so now let's just send a small WhatsApp with a note asking for you can afford like 50,000 shillings to give me for whatever, not understanding that 50,000 is sitting between you and zero in the bank account right now.
Agreed.
And you've got to think through that 50,000. So then you become mean. So your family doesn't like you because nowadays you're so full of yourself. And you're not seen at home because every hour is on the dream. And you are getting unhealthy because you don't move enough. You don't drink enough water. You're not taking care of yourself. These are the untold stories of founding. And the space where we can go and tell the truth of how hard it is. How many relationships are lost.
True.
Teenagers have gone haywire. Mothers who would rather give up on the business because they can see that they are losing their home. Spouses who don't understand the co-founder and therefore turn their back on them, not understanding that this is your person stepping into their purpose. And perhaps your purpose is to be there with them. And so businesses break, ideas die, people die young, lives are unhappy, also that we could birth a dream. This is the story that is untold.
This has to have a part 2, and I think we'll discuss and schedule. But wow, what a story! I mean, you've given us a lot to think about, and myself personally, as a Kenyan, as a Nairobian, I know healthcare is always at the top of what we're discussing. But I think we'll give you a chance to just pitch your pitch to the masses of what you're doing in a format that they can consume it, and then we'll wrap up and schedule when we'll come back and have this discussion in greater detail.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
So let me have a conversation with you just directly and ask you this. Have you or your loved one struggled with medical bills? It's not uncommon. It's not just you. This is a phenomenon that happens at every single tier of the Kenyan and indeed the African society. over 80% of us at some point will be struggling to pay a medical bill, and yet it doesn't have to be so. If you are in Kenya or in Juba, South Sudan, you can access up to 4 times more in healthcare benefits for every dollar that you pay onto CheckUps COVA. So how do you do this? www.checkupsmed, CheckUpsmed.com. Click on Buy Benefits, and you will see everything that I'm telling you about. And who can access these healthcare benefits? Anyone in Kenya or in Juba in South Sudan, right the way from Kisumu to Mombasa, Moyale to Kajiado. We have coverage in every single county for you, your family, your employees, and your loved ones. And if you don't have the money to pay for it right now, give us a call on 0111 050 290 0111 050 290, and let's discuss how we can help you access some money so that you pay for healthcare today rather than delay it and then pay for even worse outcomes much later on. What we exist at CheckUps COVA to do is to ensure that you don't delay healthcare because you didn't have money. Give us a call.
Excellent. Renee Ngamau, CheckUps Medical. CheckUps COVA is a product. Fabulous conversation. Thank you very much. One, for enlightening us on some very hard-hitting and sensitive topics, but real topics. Thank you for your authenticity and genuineness in the conversation. And we wish you all the very best. And we look forward to having you in the future to discuss where this journey has taken you. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Episode 11 of the African Do podcast, where we tell stories of Africans doing. This has been a fabulous conversation. We look forward to seeing you in episode 12.